Hello, welcome. It's Thursday. What's the date today? April 24th. Welcome. I'm David Brannen, and you are at Ask a Lawyer Live here for our weekly call-in edition. This is the day of the week when I take phone calls from people. We've had some brave souls call in the past, and if anyone is watching today and likes to call in and do some questions, I'm here for it. What I'll do in the meantime is while we're waiting for people to show up, I'll start doing some answering questions on our online forum. So I'll do that for a little bit. And then if you are someone who wants to ask a question by a phone in, you can let me know in the chat. And I will, once I do a few answering some questions on the forum, I'll put up the phone number for people to call in if they want to. But if you know that you want to call in, just send a message through the chat and I'll post the number up. Okay, so busy day at the office today. I'm pretty glad it's the end of the day. I'm not going to lie. I do enjoy this stream at the end of the day, so it gives me something to look forward to. This was often a dead time of the day for me anyway, because I find it hard to keep working and keeping my attention going at, it's where I'm locally. It's 4 o'clock locally, my time, depending on where you are in the country. It may be a little earlier or later. But this time of the day is usually a pretty dead time for me. So having this stream to do every day gives me something to look forward to and keeps me more productive than if I was just trying to keep writing a brief or doing other things like that. Hey, buddy, looks like my associate just showed up on time. All right, perfect. So I guess we're good to go. So let's take a peek. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to look at some answers. Let's do a couple answers on the there it is here. Let's answer some questions on the forum. All right. So for those of you who don't know, I do sponsor in the Canadian Disability Claim Forum. I own the forum, but it's for people who want to ask questions about. This forum is dedicated to disability questions. It's designed so that other people in the forum can answer questions. So you get advice from other people who are going through what you're going through, not necessarily for a lawyer. I do like to go through here, and sometimes I'll put comments on some of the threads, but sometimes people will tag me and ask me to ask questions as well. So let's go take a peek. I've got 17 unread, so let's go through some of these. Well, let's just start with number one here. Let's start with number one. Oh, I think I answered this one earlier in the week. Yeah, we already answered this one, so I will move on to another one. This was one where the person wanted to know who should get the money. Like when you have a child in CPP disability benefits, I guess some of you people may not have been here earlier in the week when I answered this one, but with this question, part of it was that the payment, the insurance company said that they can deduct the child's portion of the CPP disability benefit. When you get approved for CPP disability, you get two payments if you have children. So if you have children, you will get your own disability payment. And then based on your disability, your children can qualify for payments. The children don't have to be disabled. They just qualify based on your disability. And so what this person didn't like was that they also get long-term disability insurance benefits. And they were told by the long-term disability insurer that the insurer would also deduct the children's benefits. So to make this more complicated, once children become age 18, they can continue to get the children's disability benefit based on, again, the parent, you being the one who's qualified for CPP disability. Children continue to get it when they're 18 to 25, as long as they're continually to be enrolled in school, like college or university. And I guess what this parent was saying is they're concerned that the money will go to the child, but the insurance company will still deduct it from them. It also becomes an issue if there are taxes owing and things like that. So you can have the money going to the child, the tax money's not coming out. So it can just make a complete mess for people. What I recommended in this situation, this person wanted to know, should they put their bank account on the child's benefit or should they put their children's? I recommended they start with their own bank account and then it can be switched over to the children later and Service Canada can work it out. All right, let's back up here. And go through these unread ones. What is the claim lab? Look at this, 19. I haven't looked at this one for a while. 19 questions on here about this thing. So the claim lab, this is an interesting one, actually. This one goes way back. Oh, wow. There's pages and pages here. So the claim lab, this was first posted in 2022. And let's go down to the most recent post on this thing. The claim lab is something that's been set up by the insurance companies. So I don't know a lot about the claim lab. I'm going to be honest with you. My understanding, the claim lab is a organization that uses AI and other automations to sell services to insurance companies, and they will just make it more efficient for the insurance company to process disability claims. That's my understanding of it. But I'll be quite frank, I haven't looked into it for a while. I think what happens is they either get notice that their claim is moving to the claim lab, or they want an authorization form to allow it to go to the claim lab. It looks here too that it says here, I get the claim. Okay, Buckets. I think Buckets has actually been has been to the live stream before too. I get the claim lab email now once a year, and it takes me about 30 seconds to answer the 5 really easy questions. About 2 weeks after hitting the submit button, a standard email saying, based on your answers, you continue to be eligible. Okay, so they're using the claim lab to automate ongoing management of claims. That's kind of what's going on here. And so Buckets is saying, this is why it's so useful to get advice from people who are on this forum, because Buckets is dealing with the claim lab, whereas I only hear about it. It's an automated way for them to figure out. It's just an automated way. So you would fill out the form online rather than filling out a paper copy, and it would get processed more quickly. Obviously, I think there's AI and things being used on some of this stuff, which is not necessarily bad, quite honestly. Most people just want their claims processed as efficiently and as quickly as possible. So if AI is helping do that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. All right, let's get out of the claim lab. Let's see what else we have here for unread. Might have already answered this one too earlier in the week, but let's take a look. Yeah, I already answered this one earlier in the week, so I'm just going to skip it. Vaccine mandates. This must be old. Yeah, this is an old one. I just haven't looked at it. This person was tagging me saying, would an insurance company be able to deny payments because I refuse to get COVID vaccines before going to an IAB? To my knowledge, hospitals and clinics are no longer asking about vax status. So this was in November of last year. Yeah, oh boy. I'm glad we're past this, because this was a very challenging area, because it's not clear in the law where things stand, and there's a lot of competing information about the vaccine and the efficacy and all these kinds of things. So I would say that you don't have to agree to have a vaccine to go get an independent medical. They would have to provide someone who could give an independent medical without requiring you to have a vaccine, honestly. But I think this is less and less of an issue now. Thankfully, this is all past us. Again, if anyone wants to call in, just let me know in the chat and I'll post the number up. But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep going through some of these. All right, this one I've already done, but I'd just like to get rid of it. There we go. Hopefully that'll get rid of it. Yeah, that got rid of it. There we go. So EI eligibility and LTD. Let's take a look at this one. This is an older one. This person is saying, I have a question. I was on LTD for 2 years, just recently ended in May 2024. They stated that I'm not completely disabled from working any job. They want to go back to their original employer, but fortunately I'm not able to return to work, not fully recovered. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see where the main question is here. Oh, yeah. So they're saying The employer cannot accommodate them. The employer is asking them to apply for EI. They did that, but EI denied it, saying you haven't worked in the last 52 weeks. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they're saying that. So they're saying they were still getting denied EI. EI is a tough one. They can backdate EI, so I'm not sure if this person's been able to resolve it. This was a question from last summer, so almost a year ago. Um, Now, this question wasn't directed at me personally, but they were just asking in the forum. This Buckets is suggesting maybe they breached the LTD agreement and the employer may not be putting enough effort into accommodating, which both of these could be true. Now, EI is pretty straightforward. I don't have all the criteria right in front of me, but you do have to have a certain number of weeks. However, they can backdate EI applications. So you just may have to ask them to revisit the EI, because if there was a period where you were getting long-term disability benefits, they can still make the EI claim based on the EI sickness based on an earlier sickness date. Yeah, it does make it difficult. EI is tough because if you're getting LTD and the LTD and the EI overlap, then you can't get both. You'd have to pay back the EI. I have heard there being some ways of legally having EI backdate or forward date the EI, but I don't know I don't have all the intricacies of it right at my fingertips here. There is some ability, so sometimes you just have to tell them, make sure they know the full history of what's been going on in terms of, this is the date I got sick, this is the date I went off, here's the date I got the LTD. And the other thing you can do is always appeal it. If you get an EI decision you don't like, you can appeal it and try to see if they can fit if you can meet the criteria based on basically a backdated EI claim, which is legal to do. But again, if they're backdating it but paying it now, that is something that has to be done carefully to make sure that you're not overlapping benefits. Otherwise, you'll get paid the EI and have to refund it if it overlaps with periods where you got LTD. So you have to get them to make it on an older claim but pay the benefits out later, that is the challenge in a case like this. All righty, let's see what else we got here. Unread. How much info to share with coworkers? I would say none. I've already answered this one. So this was a question I've already talked on. It looks like there has been updates. So I already replied on this. So I have replied here. It says, how much information do I share? I said this is a person. So sharing with your managers. So basically what happened is this person's off sick, and managers and other people, probably because they're just being polite or just asking, how are you? What's going on? And there's different levels of nosiness of coworkers and things. Sometimes this may not be completely innocent. They could be asking because they're trying to dig up information for managers at work or something like that. What I always tell people, look, it's a personal choice, but I recommend not telling coworkers anything, because you can't rely on them to respect your privacy, basically. Okay. So you don't want to give coworkers information. They could feed it back to other people. It can get exaggerated. It can, you know how it works. When you tell somebody something, it can get changed. It often finds its way back to the management. And so it just puts everybody in a bad spot. Yeah. So this one just had a coworker who was reaching out. Here, Fishy says, don't do it. It absolutely made drama when I did. So this person is saying when they talked to coworkers and gave them information, it just created drama. And that's probably true. Like, most people are going to be asking, like, most people asking and wanting details of things are usually drama people. So I would agree with here, Fishy, to say, just don't tell them anything. If they're like a real close friend, then maybe they already know what's going on in your life. But if they're just an acquaintance at work, don't tell them anything. Not worth it. You don't want the drama. You absolutely do not want the drama. All right, let's see what else we have here. Returning to work after 4 years on LTD. This is another old thread, but it looks like there was some more recent updates. Oh, no, they're not that recent. Ooh, that's long. I can't read all that. That's way too long to read on here. Just trying to see if I can see what the main thing they were asking about. Hmm. So it originally was a post started by this guy, but it just other people then will ask their own questions on the same post. So if we look at the original poster, they were on LTD 4 years, but were wanting to try to go back to work. And they want to know, like, if I go back to work, what happens if I get worse and have to go off work again? And they also want to know, like, what if I go back to work and the company lays me off immediately? And they're also getting CPP. So it's you want to be very careful when planning a return to work where you want to initiate it. I encourage people to do it, but you definitely need to plan it out. If you're like this person here, Andrew 124399, then and you're getting LTD CPP, you would want to start with CPP disability and letting them know that you would like to try a return to work. You're not certain it's going to be successful, but you would like to try it. Then you would want to ask CPP to put you in their vocational rehabilitation program. That allows you then to try to return to work and still get CPP disability and not run afoul of earning too much money and also having to pay money back to CPP. So that's the first thing you would do. Second thing you would do would be to talk to your LTD insurer and just see let them know that you would like to try to do this and you're not certain it's going to be successful. Some LTD insurers will be fine. Some will just say, okay, that's great. We're just going to give you X amount of, we'll keep paying you for this long. And after that, we'll stop your payments. Some will be willing to give you a rehabilitation coordinator to help. Not all of them will do that. If you have the financial means, it's worthwhile hiring your own vocational rehabilitation person to help. It's not out of control expensive, but it could cost like hundreds of dollars to have that, but it could be worth it to help you. And then, go back and try. If you go back to your own employer can always terminate you. Some employers are happy to have people off on long-term disability, but they're not so happy when you try to return to work because maybe they don't have a job for you. Things have changed in the meantime. They don't want to try to accommodate you. And so employers can do a couple of things. They may approach you to try to do like a voluntary buyout retirement. They might let you come back and cause problems and make life difficult for you, hoping you will just resign. They could just outright fire you. That is always an issue for them because depending on how your contract is worded, they might not be able to just fire you without paying severance. They also could be run afoul of like discrimination problems by firing somebody who's trying to return to work from disability. Those are some of my favorite employment cases to work on, are these people being fired when they're returning off of disability leave. But ultimately, the employer can terminate the employment. So there's not a whole lot you can do. That does complicate things because your LTD is tied to your employment. You don't need to be with the same employer to continue to be on LTD. But if you go back to work and are off LTD, if it's deemed that, like, all LTD policies have something in them called a recurrence clause, which is the idea that it's meant to allow people to try to return to work. And if it doesn't go well, you can go back on LTD. These recurrence periods are usually within 6 months. So you've got to usually within around 6 months, if your return to work fails because your disability, reoccurs, then you can go right back on your claim. But it's not always 6 months. So you have to be very careful. This is something you'd want to know ahead of time. What is the recurrence period for your claim? how long have you got? How does the reoccurrence period work for your claim? You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're going off work and you go off work. You go off a long-term disability, you go back to work, and now there's been a reoccurrence of disability after a little bit. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't go back on your claim. And it's a matter of days or even minutes. If you are past the recurrence period, then you can't go back on the claim. So again, you'd want to plan this out real well. You would definitely need to see your group benefits booklet to see how does your plan cover reoccurrence. And in fact, I just looked over, we had someone contacting us today. Theirs is a reoccurrence issue where they went back to work and then had to go off again, and the insurer is not recognizing the case. The insurer is blaming it on workplace issues. So they're saying this is not a disability claim, there's workplace issues, so otherwise you should be able to work. I don't know if that person will end up hiring us or not, but it is the similar kind of situation where you have these reoccurrences and going back, the insurers will often try to not pay that claim. Now, here's the answer I gave. You can see some people here are saying just don't try it, don't do it. Jammer is a very well-known, I don't know who Jammer is personally. I just know Jammer from I don't know if it's a he, she, them, they, them. I have no idea. So Jammer does posts on here all the time. Very good poster. Gives a lot of good advice. I've thanked Jammer many times for how much good posting that they've done on the site here. But Jammer's opinion was don't do it. Not worth the hassles. The insurance company want to get you off the books. It's black and white with them. This is correct. You can either work 100% or not. And that is very correct. It's not always the case, but that is very good advice from Jammer. Yeah, and I did make a comment here. So you can see I said similar things about the reoccurrence clause. And yeah, it's exactly pretty much the same thing that I've just said here. Okay, let's take a look. What else we got here? Let's clean this out. I'm going to get these 10 unread things gone today, unless we get some phone calls, people wanting to phone in. I'm just going to keep going through these. Then we'll be caught up. So question regarding job change while on medical return to work. Okay, let's see what this one is. If you are on a return to work plan at your current job, but are offered a job with a different employer, is it advisable to take it? The reason I ask is the insurance company and current employer are making it a living hell, but there is a great benefits plan, and I worry if I re-injure or twig the previous injury, it may not be covered. Yeah. So this is a great question. This is from 2017, so this is also an older one that must have had a more recent comment. The key thing to know here, and I've got an answer here, but I'm just going to give an answer here as well. The key thing to know is that your LTD plan, once you have an open claim, it is no longer tied to your employment. So once you qualify to make a disability claim, a long-term disability claim, it's no longer tied to your employment. You can be fired, you can leave the job, and your open claim will still stay with you because it's independent of your work. Now, there are issues when you change employers and go back to work, because let's say you're on a claim and you want to leave an employer and go work somewhere else. Well, you can do that, but as I discussed, you've only got this period of time where if you try to return to work if you try to go back to work with a different employer, let's look at the two scenarios here just to make it clear. So if you do a return to work with your own employer, then you are now covered under your same long-term disability plan again, most likely. So if you're with your own employer, you go back to work, there's going to be two scenarios. Number one, you have to go off work again within the reoccurrence period, which is within 6 months. If that happens, you just go back on your LTD claim as right away, or you fight to make that happen. If you if you're back with the same employer with the same group benefits and you go past the 6 months, well, then you'd make a new claim. So you just wouldn't jump back on the old claim. You'd have to make a new claim and go through all the process again, but at least you can make a claim. The problem when you switch to a new employer is you can still be covered under the reoccurrence period to go back on benefits. But if you work with a new employer past the reoccurrence period, you no longer can make a new claim under your old policy that you had with your old employer. Now, your new employer may have group benefits, but the fine print in those group benefits in almost all cases will say that you cannot make a disability claim if you've been enrolled in our group plan for less than a year. That is the problem. So there is this kind of no man's land between the 6-month reoccurrence and being at the new employment for 12 months. And it's not always 12 months, but that is a common number. So there's this 6-month gap there. If you happen to like fall in that, you are completely without coverage. You're past the reoccurrence period, but you haven't worked long enough to qualify to make a disability claim under your new employer. So you, like a person like this, what I would have said here is you really have to make sure that you do not fall into that more than 6 months, less than a year period of having your return to work fail. You have to be very, very careful about that, because if you get caught in that area, you just be without coverage. That is the downside of changing jobs and the danger of changing jobs. All righty. Let's go back here. Okay, got 9 left. Let's have a look here. A lot of return to work ones here. A lot of return to work questions. All right. This is another older one. Okay. Let me see if I can boil it down here without reading out this whole thing. This person's been on LTD. They're doing better. And they do want to return to work, but there's a toxic work environment. So it's another person that wants to know, are they being foolish for wanting to try to return to work when they're on an approved LTD claim? And they're wondering, like, what happens if I get a job which aligns with what they can do, and then they start to get worse again, MISOL. So the alley-oops is another good commenter on here. This is the same thing. I don't know if I ever answered this. There's a lot of people giving advice here. Yeah, I did pop in here. Yeah, I just recommended this person get a free case review, because these are very complicated situations. So why I would tell this person to get a free case review is I can give this person better advice if I can see their group benefits booklet and understand what the 2 things I'd want to know for this person is, like, how is it worded in your group benefits booklet for your recurrence period and things like that. And also they're approaching the change of definition where it would be disability from any occupation. So I would want to get an understanding, like, what is the income threshold for your plan when you move into any occupation? So just because you're now have to show a disability from any occupation, there is still an income threshold that it means any occupation where you could earn X amount of dollars. So I want to figure out for that person, what is that number? Then we can try to figure out what's realistic. I'd also want to know if their plan would allow them to work part-time and also receive LTD, or if this is going to be a plan where the insurer is going to want all or nothing. Like, or is it a plan where it's ambiguous? By all or nothing, I mean the insurer either wants you working 0, or you either can't work or you can work the whole thing. They won't do a top up of benefits. That is a lot of insurance plans, and that's something I'd want to know here. That's what makes this kind of question hard to answer, because I would want to know all those things, basically. Like, what is the reoccurrence period? What is your financial, what is the dollar amount that would apply to your any occupation? What's the amount? And yeah, those are things I would want to know there. It's never foolish to be thinking about this, because no one, well, I shouldn't say no one. Most people don't want to stay on long-term disability. It's a hassle. It's not like you're getting ahead financially. You can always do better working for most people if you're capable of working. So that is kind of the question here. You can see, if you see the responses here, I'm not going to go through them all, but people are really basically saying, like, be very cautious about doing this. you may be overestimating what you can do. You can just open a can of worms. Now, like I've seen insurers, when people bring this up, just cut people off immediately and say, here's 3 months of benefits. Good luck. Use this to transition. So it can really open a can of worms. So again, you will want to take your time with that. Okay. So it looks like we have someone who is wanting some questions. Kim, did you want to come on live on the air, or do you just want to ask them in the chat? I can bring you on live if you want. Just let me know in the chat there if you want to come on live, and I'll post up the number and you can call in. Okay, perfect. Excellent. So let's get rid of that. Now, Kim, if you've been here before, you know that it's a disaster when I try to do this. So be prepared that this is going to be a complete off the rails. I think I got it set up right. I think I have it set up right. So the number to call in is right here. If it doesn't work, so there's a few things. Before you call in, Kim, there's a few things. First of all, there's a delay. So when I'm speaking in my office here, you're hearing it a few seconds later. So it's very important when you call in to mute whatever you're listening to me at. So have that muted. Otherwise, we're going to get a feedback and it's going to sound weird. Yeah, your first time. Okay. So make sure before you call in, mute the wherever you're listening to me at, or we're going to get a weird feedback and it's going to throw you off because I'll be, again, where you're watching me, there's like a 5-second delay or something like that. Ideally, put headphones on if you can, but if you can't, don't worry about it. Just make sure you mute the where I'm talking from on the broadcast here. All right, let's give it a try. So phone in, Kim. I'll try to take your call here. If it doesn't work, just try to call back and we'll try to work out the bugs. It should work. We've worked out the bugs here over the last few weeks. See how Kim makes out here. There we go. Hey, Kim.
Hi there.
You hear me okay?
That I can. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I can. I got a little bit of a feedback. So hopefully everybody can still hear me good. Yeah, I think we're good. Fire away. What's your question?
Well, my question deals with the CPP disability taxation.
Yep.
I find I'm having a lot of issues in terms of getting clear information. Quick backstory. Last year, I got a letter from the government saying I had to apply, which I did, and they approved it.
Yeah.
And where my bigger question is, because now it's I guess cost shared with the BC PWD. Yep. So I get the majority from CPP disability and topped up with the PWD.
Yeah, that's right.
Where I'm having bigger issues are the taxation for this year, as I have not been able to get a T5007 or T5007 from PWD. It's not even listed on my self-serve when I go to sign in. And when I've called them a couple of times, the first person said they had the information, that they can see it. And then I asked, but I can't see it on my end. And she did not have an answer. And then when I called again, another agent has said not to worry about it, but it impacts where I live and trying to do the taxes.
Right.
Because when I received my CPP disability, I guess whatever the tax receipt for that, I had to download that.
Yeah.
It is lumped back to 2022, which is going to, on paper, that is not real representation, whereby the money went straight to the government, but it's over 3 years or 2 years, 2022 to 2024. So I don't know how to get
I don't know that I'll be able to get you on the right path here, but there's a few things to think about. So when you got your retroactive pay from CPP disability, they did pay it directly to the government, did they?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So when that happens, there is a spot on your personal tax return where you can indicate that part of the money was a repayment and you won't be taxed on that money. So that is something to keep in mind. I mention it in, let me see here. I mentioned it in my CPP disability book.
You have to get that.
Let me grab it. I can never, sorry, I'm away from the mic here. I can never remember it off the top of my head, but I do talk about it in the CPP disability book. I'll just read it out for you here now.
Okay.
Okay, so I talk about taxes at page 93. Let's take a look here. Where is it? Okay, being taxed. Okay, 94. Being taxed on money you didn't get. That's just one of your problems that we're talking about here, I think. So, when you're taxed, so the way it works with taxes, there is an ability to claim a credit or a write-off. I don't know the exact right wording for this, but there is an ability to claim for money that you did not actually receive. It is under. Let me find the actual. Yeah. It's at line 23200 of your personal income tax.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll want to talk to a tax person. I don't know. There are some good resources in BC for disability. Like there's the Disability Alliance or something like that. They may be able to help with some of this too, because I'm not a tax expert. This was just based on me doing research and talking to tax people, but there is a section in the taxes 23,200, and just looking for the actual wording of it. It's called, let me see here. Oh yeah, it's called, you label it as an income amount repaid. That's what Revenue Canada calls it. So it means income that you had, but it was income repaid to someone else so you didn't see the money. That is how you handle this situation where you have, I don't know what your retroactive pay was, but let's just use an example. You had a retroactive pay of 30,000 and all 30,000 was sent over to the province through PWD. So you would have to get the amount. So again, that is probably something, this is where it gets difficult because you have to know the amount. Normally there will be okay, do you still have you would have, when you got approved for CPP, there would have been something called a, what is it called? What's the name of that document? It's a document you get that shows the back pay and it shows the payment to the province on it.
Yeah, the statement of explanation, I think.
Yeah, statement. Yeah, it's called a statement of explanation. I think it's called something else. But anyway, that's basically what we're talking about here. If you have a copy of that document, that will show exactly what was sent to the province. So you could, worst case scenario, you could include that with your taxes, and the amount that was paid to the province, you could take that amount and put it at line 2, whatever I just told you here, line 2, 23200. Now, normally 23200, you would get, there are tax slips that would show that amount. Also, the province can show that amount repaid as well on any T slip they give you, but it sounds like you're having trouble getting the T slips from them.
It's not even showing up on my, when I do PWD self-serve, it's not even there. I see the past years, but this year is not there.
I don't know, I have no idea how to do this so that it is not a nightmare for people, quite honestly. But that is a solution, is to fight to get that amount recognized in your, now it might mean you have to do appeals with Revenue Canada. They may audit it, that kind of thing. But that's why I say, giving them that, what is the name of that? But the payment explanation, the one I think that's what it's called. Yeah. Payment explanation. If you get them the payment explanation, just get a copy of it, include it with your taxes, and show that you can even put a cover letter with your taxes or whatever, but show them that the amount you're putting at 23,200 comes directly from that repayment that was made from the government. Because you're going to get a T4A you will get a T4A, you probably already have it maybe from Service Canada for your CPP.
That I do, yeah. But it's that really large amount. It's a large amount. I'm like, oh boy.
And it's all in 1 year. But there's two things going on here. Like, first of all, the amount that was repaid to the government should not be included as your taxable income. So when you put this number in at 23,200, like what that does is it lowers your taxable income by that amount. Okay. So, but it has to be the exact amount that was repaid to the government. Where people get it wrong is if they don't have the right number, or if you're reporting it and the government's also reporting it, now you're getting a double deduction. So you got to make sure that doesn't happen. But the way they would report it is it would show up on the T slip that they give you. And it sounds like that hasn't happened. When I say the government, I mean the provincial government. It would show up on the T slip they give you for benefits. Now, what other things can you do here? The other things would be that Revenue Canada will usually assess your CPP disability over the years that it would have been paid, not the year the T4A is issued. So that is something else. Again, when you give them that payment explanation, it will show the years, but they should have access to that anyway. With long-term disability claims, they issue the LTD insurers will issue a separate document that, like with LTD, they will give you a T4A, but they'll also give you a T1198. The T4A is like you got the same thing, but the T1198 will show how that, 50,000, 30,000, whatever's on the T4A, it shows how it's broken down over the years. Like you said, yours went back to 2022. So it would show all the years where these benefits would have been paid. I've never known CPP to issue a document like that. My understanding is that they have some means of assessing it without having to have that document. There should have been, like when you got your approval, there's another page that usually comes with the payment explanation that talks about taxes. And that page usually talks about how they will assess you over the years that it should have been paid as well.
Yeah, I think what makes me nervous is that I said, I guess in the wording is how they said they'll decide whether or not it's worth actually spreading it out over how many years. And I thought that's kind of odd. Like I think it should be done.
No. They'll only do it if it's to your benefit. So they'll only spread it over those years if it will actually result in a tax advantage to you. If it won't make any difference, then they won't do it. I think that's what it looks at. I think that's why they put a qualifier on there. If it's not worth doing it. So, for example, it wouldn't be worth doing it if the amount you got on your T4A would already not result in you paying any taxes, and they wouldn't bother reassessing it over years because you're already not paying taxes on it. That's what they mean by that. That's my understanding of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's over 30,000, and then the other the caveat to the next question that I was trying to put in my statement was, I think I saw one of your videos whereby I think people on disability that they're going to, I forget what it's called now, introduce not a top up, but that I think it's like works out to like a $200 benefit depending on what your tax year was, and because of the CPP coming in last year and backdating it, it actually pushes me out.
You know what? I never even thought about that. What you're talking about is the Canada Disability Benefit, but again, I don't know that it will push you out because they look at your taxable income, and if you put the income amount repaid. So if you read up about that line to whatever it is, 23,200, whatever, it is the income amount repaid. Again, that will lower your taxable income. So when your tax form finally gets down, it's like you have that big lump deduction. So that is not going to count towards your income. Then the remaining, so what would happen is when they attribute this taxes to previous years as well, they refile your taxes. So you'll get reassessments of all these years. So once they do that application, it will be reassessed. They're not just going to go by your T4. They're going to go by your reassessed taxes. So you definitely will want to get this reassessed. And then that way, when they look, the reassessment will take into account the income amount repaid deduction and also how this was spread out. So your 2024 will not be so bad as you think. In theory, that's how it should work.
Okay, so then and thank you for all this information.
Yep.
So what I'm understanding from this is to not do it online, because I can see that's going to be an issue, but to fill out go to somebody to help me with a paper.
Maybe, yeah.
I guess filing on paper so that I can submit these documents.
If you file online, can't you upload supporting documents?
I don't know. This is like a new, now that I have more cognitive function, it's like I just don't want to make it harder on myself.
Yeah.
But
sometimes what they will do, so I don't know that if you can find someone to help you that knows what they're doing, but you could go to someone and you will already know more than them. They won't have any idea. Like a lot of tax preparers, unless they're dealing routinely with people with disability benefits, they won't have any idea about this income amount repaid. I didn't have any idea of it for years until actually someone on the forum that I was just going over mentioned it at one point. Then I dug more into it. I was like, holy smokes, I didn't even know about this. There was a person who I ran across at one point who was offering a service to people, but I can't even remember who that person was. And I don't necessarily endorse them or not endorse them, but so just know that you should do a little homework before you go talk to a tax preparer and read up on that line item that the tax line that I'm talking about, because there are guidelines that you can easily Google them where they will take you through and explain it and the types of things that can go in there. And one of them is an income amount repaid. The trick is just being able to verify that income amount repaid. Now, what you could do is you could file it online. If you know that exact amount because you have it from that payment explanation, you could fill it in. Then when you file it, they will then ask you for supporting documents. So even if you can't attach them, when you file it, they'll come back to you and say, we need these supporting documents or whatever. So, and they might say, we need supporting documents to show this income amount repaid. And then you can give them that at that point, if there's no other way to get it to them earlier. So,
okay. All right. That's much better information than trying to call the sources, whereby
it's very hard.
I think they were either winging it or they didn't know, but didn't want to say that they don't know.
Exactly. Again, take it for what it's worth here. Like I'm giving you my best advice, but again, I'm not a tax person, but at least this gives you somewhere to go with it. And the intent of how it's supposed to work. So how it's supposed to work is, first of all, the lump sum is spread out over the years when it should have been paid, number one. So that will automatically lower your taxes, and they reassess those taxes in prior years, and you get reassessments will be sent to you. The second thing is that if an amount is repaid out of your lump sum, you should not be taxed on that because it can be deducted on that line 23,200 or 22,300, whatever it is. So read up on that, and hopefully that will solve your problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. There you go, folks. Look at that. Kim was brave and called in. This is why I do this on Thursdays, so that we can go back and forth and I can answer questions more easily. I can't do these calls outside of this period because I'm so booked up during the week that I don't do many calls like this anymore with people. So I figured this was a perfect time to offer this. Now, obviously the downside is it's not private, but for stuff like Kim and I were talking about, there is perfect thing to call in on. All right. So I'm going to do one more here. I'm going to do one more of these, if someone else wants to call in, just mention it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to do a couple more of these. Let me just put this back up here. I'm going to do a couple more things from the forum. Let's bring it back up here. This is like the perfect chance. This forum, I'm always like, oh yeah, I got to go check out the forum. This is the perfect time for me to do this forum. This is on days when there's no one has questions on the stream. I can answer the forum questions. It's perfect. All right, let's take a look at this. So, okay, so we're done with this one. We were looking at that when Kim wanted to call in. Let's see some more of these unread ones I've got. All right, this one we just did. Let's just scroll so it goes away. All right, 8. Here we go. LTD and company pen. Okay, what is this all about? I've already answered it, so I must have. Oh, pension. It must be pension. Yeah. So this person's saying they're new to the board, this message board. I've been on LTD for over 2 years and have been approved, receiving CPP clawed back, of course, and I can accept my company's pension at 100% when I reach 60. Can I take my pension without issues? Probably not. Thank you so much. Yeah. Caro, who's also a very trusted person on this site, said, no, you can't, which is correct. Well, probably correct. Many LTD benefits end when a disabled person retires. That is true. Some will end. So sometimes when you quote unquote retire, it can stop your benefits completely, depending on your plan. But that's not always. Sometimes it won't do that, but it will reduce. So whatever you get from your pension, your LTD reduces dollar for dollar what they pay you by your pension amount. So that is what can happen. This brings up other things too, like you could sometimes, because there's no financial benefit to taking it early, because your LTD will just, unless your pension is greater than your long-term disability, then you won't be any better off financially, because your long-term disability will just decrease by what the LTD is. And if there's any penalty for you taking your pension early, now you're just getting a penalty with no benefit. Where a person like this often thinks, well, I'll get both. I'll get the LTD and I'll keep the pension and I'll be way better off. But that's not always the case. It can be like a nightmare scenario where it triggers, thought I wasn't sharing there for a second. It triggers you to lose your LTD completely, which is, we've had people where that's happened. One time I was able to get it reversed. Another time I wasn't, unfortunately. And the other thing, it would be that just will reduce what you're being paid. So you want to make sure. So this is one where you want to really take your time to figure it out. You want to talk to the pension administrator. That's usually what I tell people. They're coming to me with questions and I'm like, these are questions better asked to the pension administrator. You get if you're in a pension like this is a pension people have through their work. You will get annual pension statements from your pension administrator. There's little things at the bottom that says call here with questions. They have people there that are knowledgeable at the pensions who answer these kind of questions. You're better off asking them. The pension administrators are separate from your employer. So if you're asking them questions, it's not like it's all going to be fed directly back to your employer. The pension administrators are separate and they answer these kind of things and help you plan. They know the different scenarios of what can happen. So this person responded back. Oh, this was another person, was given an example. They said, my booklet says the following about pensions. Under retirement or pension plan funded in whole or in part by the employers as a result. Under retirement or pension plan. Okay, yeah, I don't know what that said. I also don't really know what that's supposed to mean, to be honest, without the context of everything else. All right, let's do another one. I wanted to get these down to 0, but if we don't, we'll finish them off on Monday. Okay, eligible medical expenses and non-taxable LTD income. Let's see what this one is all about. This person's new. Want some questions. Been on LTD for 2 years, non-taxable. All right. So some long-term disability benefits are not taxable. Those would be the ones where you paid 100% of the premiums for the benefits. That's kind of a benefit. I wouldn't call it a loophole because it's something that is a benefit to people who pay for their own long-term disability benefits. Okay, they're saying because they're taxable, they didn't have taxable income. They wanted to know about, they didn't include medical expenses. Now they're wondering, should they have put the eligible medical expenses on their tax returns, even though they didn't have taxable income? That is a good question. I wonder what people answered on this. a lot of these are non-refundable tax credits. So what it means is if you normal medical expenses will lower your taxable income, but if you don't have taxable income, it doesn't necessarily help you because there's no income. You've not paid any income taxes to get refunded. It's not like you can now get a benefit refunded to you for taxes you didn't pay. You can only be refunded up to any amount of taxes that you've actually paid in. But probably what people are going to say down below here is if you're filing taxes with a spouse or something like that, and there's joint taxes and things, then it could matter because you're going to lower taxes for your spouse. These people are saying doesn't make any sense to do it. Okay. This person says they don't do it. Yeah. Okay. Sunrise is thinking like me. I'm not an accountant, but if you have a spouse or partner, you can have that person claim your medical expenses. Yeah, that is correct. So that would be the way to do it. Okay. So there's different people going off a bit off topic saying LTD, do they get your tax returns or not? LTD will often ask for your tax returns. You don't necessarily have to give them to them, but they often just want to see them to see, do you have any other sources of income? Yeah. I was saying just include them. I guess I was just trying to cover all the bases here. The reason that you would want to include them, I guess I made this point, is if the reason you might want to include deductions, even though you're not going to get a benefit, is if you ever get reassessed in the future or income attributed to your past benefits, like the CPP and that kind of thing. But if you're not going to ever get retroactive income attributed, then there wouldn't be any reason to. But if there's a chance you could get money in the future that would, like a CPP approval, that could be applied backwards. Sorry if my hand's screwing up the camera there. Then you might want to do that. All right. I think that's it for now. What do we got left? We've got 6 left. I'll save those for Monday to give us something to go over. I appreciate you, Kim, if you're still around, for coming on and chatting. I'll be back here on Monday talking about CPP disability. Let me get rid of this off the screen. We'll be back on Monday talking about CPP disability. Tuesday, we'll talk about LTD again. I'll continue to go through LTD. I've been going through the 11 mistakes in my book here. And oh, by the way, since I do have this up here, let's talk about this book. So this is my book for long-term disability. It's my newest book that's out. I'd encourage you to pick it up if you like. You can get the book by texting LTD book to this number, and it'll text you back a copy of the book. You can also, once you download a PDF copy of the book, you get an option to order it from us for free. If you're dealing with a long-term disability claim, we'll send it to you. You can also buy the book on Amazon. But again, I encourage you, if you are dealing with your own disability claim, we'll give you the book for free. If you're a lawyer who wants it, go buy it on Amazon. So I don't give out free books to other lawyers, but I'll give them, you can go buy it on Amazon. But if you are a person dealing with this, you can get it from us for free. That's all. I wish you all the best, folks. Have a good weekend. I'm going to take tomorrow off, so I will not be back here. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.